Imagine a business where your top selling product is technically a state tax felony, your chief pest control officer is a walking health code violation who sleeps on the Wonder Bread, and you make more net profit from a beige metal box in the corner than from every single grocery item on your shelves combined. I am not making this up. This is the New York City Bodega. And while it looks like a chaotic, lovable corner store run by a guy who calls you boss while serving you at 2 in the afternoon, the underlying economics of this place are stranger, trickier, and more cutthroat than a Wall Street hedge fund. If you look at the balance sheet of a bodega, you realize something terrifying very quickly. This isn't a grocery store at all. But if it's not a grocery store, how is it printing money? And why are so many of them silently going bankrupt? By the end of this story, you are going to know why the most valuable square inch of your neighborhood corner store isn't the deli grill. It's the 2 square feet of linoleum underneath the ATM. You'll learn how a single typographical error on a government PDF can vaporize 40% of a store's customers overnight. And you'll see why owning a bodega without a lottery terminal is basically like opening a Las Vegas casino without a roulette wheel. Let's start with the dream. Because let's be honest, you and I have both had that romantic thought at 3 a.m. while waiting for a sandwich. You look around, you see the guy behind the counter scooping up cash, and you think, I could do this. Buy some shelves, order some potato chips, get a flat top grill, and boom, I'm the mayor of the block. Well, grab a chair, boss. Because the cost ladder of opening a bodega has 3 distinct rungs, and every single one of them is rigged with a hidden financial landmine. Let's look at Tier 1, the outer borough hole in the wall. Just a simple counter, a few refrigerators, no deli grill. To get the doors open, you need roughly $50,000 to $70,000 for key money, used coolers, and your initial stock of chips and soda. Sounds manageable, right? Not so fast. Because you forgot the first hidden cost that nobody budgets for, the cigarette float. If you want to survive, you have to sell tobacco. But cigarette wholesalers don't do consignment, and you can't return unsold inventory. That means you have to take $5,000 to $10,000 of your own cold hard cash and lock it up in sealed packs of Newports and Marlboros sitting on a shelf behind the register. That money just sits there collecting dust while you pray for a rush of smokers. It is a massive sunk cost before you even sell your first pack of gum. But say you want to go bigger. Let's step up to Tier 2, the classic full-service corner bodega. Now we're talking a 24-hour operation, a walk-in beer cooler, and that legendary flat-top deli grill. Now your startup cost jumps to anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000. You're installing commercial ventilation, fire suppression systems, and security cameras. And right here, you hit the second hidden landmine, the ATM replenishment cycle. We are going to talk about why the ATM is your secret weapon in a minute, but here is the catch nobody tells you. That machine does not fill itself with magic bank money. That is your cash inside that machine. To keep a busy bodega ATM running, you have to keep $20,000 to $40,000 of your own working capital circulating inside that metal box at all times. And if someone breaks in at 4 in the morning with a crowbar and jacks the ATM, the bank doesn't lose that money. You lose that money. Now, if you survive that, you might dream of reaching Tier 3, the mini chain. 3 to 5 locations, a central prep kitchen, maybe your own branded coffee bags. Now you are spending over $1 million. You are playing in the big leagues. And that is where you meet the boss-level landmine, the USDA food stamp audit. In low-income urban neighborhoods, up to 40% of a bodega's revenue comes from SNAP, government food stamps, also known as EBT. But the regulations around what you can and cannot sell with EBT are a bureaucratic nightmare. If a newly hired part-time cashier accidentally lets a customer buy a hot sandwich or a roll of paper towels on an EBT card, the government can slap you with a $100,000 trafficking fine per store. Worse, a single paperwork typo on your federal renewal portal can trigger a months-long license deauthorization. Imagine waking up on a Tuesday and finding out that 40% of your customers literally cannot spend money in your store anymore because you dropped an S on a digital form. That is the fragility of the bodega dream. Which brings us to the big reveal, the secret mechanism that explains how these places actually survive. I want you to wipe your brain clean of whatever you think a bodega is. You think you are looking at a neighborhood food market. You are not. What you are looking at is a highly leveraged financial liquidity and gambling hub that uses stale tasty cakes and canned beans as architectural camouflage. Let me translate that for you. In the convenience retail industry, the net profit margin on basic packaged groceries, your milk, your cereal, your canned soup, is roughly 2 to 3%. Translation, you make pennies. If you sell a $2 bag of chips, you are putting maybe 5 cents in your pocket after paying for the product, the lights, and the cashier. You cannot pay $12,000 a month in commercial rent on 5-cent profit margins. The math does not work. So why are the shelves full of cereal and chips? Because they are bait. The physical groceries exist for one reason and one reason only: to create predictable, daily foot traffic so you can funnel human beings toward the 3 things in the store that actually print money. Number 1, the lottery terminal. The New York State Lottery pays retailers a 6% commission on every single draw game and scratch-off ticket they sell, plus a cash bonus if your store sells a winning jackpot ticket. A busy corner bodega can easily sell $20,000 to $30,000 worth of lottery tickets a week. 6% of $30,000 is $1,800 in pure, unadulterated profit. You have zero inventory risk, zero food spoilage, and zero cooking labor. You literally just press a button on a touchscreen, print a piece of paper, and take your cut. In fact, because the state caps the number of lottery machines allowed in a specific neighborhood, owners treat their lottery terminal like a legal monopoly. A store with an active lottery license will sell for double the price of an identical store across the street without one. Number 2, the ATM. That beige box in the corner is an economic miracle. The average surcharge on an independent bodega ATM is $3.50. A good location handles between 60 and 100 transactions every single day. Let's do the math. 80 withdrawals a day times $3.50 equals $280 of pure daily profit. That is over $100,000 a year in surcharge revenue, generated by a machine that takes up 2 square feet of floor space. Let that sink in. A piece of metal the size of a filing cabinet generates more net profit than the entire middle aisle of your grocery store combined. The groceries are just the waiting room for the ATM. Number 3, the deli grill. Yes, this is where the bacon, egg, and cheese comes in. While packaged food makes a tiny 2% margin, a hot breakfast sandwich is a different beast entirely. An egg, a slice of processed cheese, 2 strips of bacon, and a roll cost the bodega roughly $1.10 in raw ingredients. They sell that sandwich to you for $4.50. That is a 70% gross margin. You would have to sell 22 individual bags of potato chips just to make the exact same profit as flipping one single bacon, egg, and cheese. So the economic engine is simple. The EBT program and the grocery shelves drag the bodies through the front door. Once the bodies are inside, the smell of the grill traps them, the lottery terminal sells them hope, and the ATM extracts $3.50 just for the privilege of paying cash. It is a brilliant, self-sustaining loop. And speaking of paying cash, have you ever walked into a bodega with a credit card, tried to buy a $2 iced tea, and had the cashier point to a dusty piece of cardboard that says $5 minimum on card? You probably thought, man, this guy's just being difficult. He's not. He is fighting for his life against Visa and MasterCard. Here's the secret. Every time you tap your debit or credit card, the processing bank charges the merchant a fixed swipe fee, usually around 10 to 15 cents, plus 2 to 3% of the total sale. If you buy a $1.50 pack of chewing gum with a card, that fixed swipe fee eats 20 cents right off the top. On an item where the bodega only made 15 cents of profit to begin with, a card swipe literally turns the sale into a financial loss. The owner loses 5 cents just by letting you chew gum. That dusty $5 minimum sign isn't an insult. It's a defensive shield against the banking system. And that is also why the famous Bodega cat exists. We all love the Bodega cat. You see a chubby tabby sleeping on a stack of beer cases, you take a photo, you put it on the internet. Aw, look at the community mascot. Here's the cold, hard financial truth about that cat. Under municipal health codes, having a live animal inside a food establishment is strictly illegal. If a Department of Health inspector catches that cat roaming the aisles, they will write the owner a violation ticket that costs between $200 and $300. So why does almost every bodega in New York keep a cat? Because of basic math. To hire a licensed commercial pest control exterminator to keep mice and rats out of a building that has doors swinging open 24 hours a day costs between $300 and $600 every single month. But a hungry territorial street cat? That cat works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the price of a half can of Friskies. In the mind of a bodega owner, paying a $300 health department fine once a year when the inspector complains is literally a 50% discount on pest control. The cat is not a pet. The cat is a calculated, risk-mitigated accounting strategy. Now, with an ATM printing money, a lottery machine collecting state commissions, a 70% margin grill, and a tax-deductible cat, you would think bodega owners are driving Ferraris and retiring at 40. They aren't. In fact, 30% of independent convenience stores collapse within their first 3 years of operation. So why do so many of them die? Because 2 massive, unstoppable forces are constantly squeezing this business model from both sides. Force number one is the landlord. To understand how deadly a landlord can be to a bodega, you have to look at the tragic collapse of Gem Spa. Picture it, the corner of 2nd Avenue and St. Mark's Place in the East Village of Manhattan. Gem Spa wasn't just a bodega, it was a cultural legend. For 80 years, it was the undisputed birthplace of the New York egg cream. The New York dolls hung out there, it was photographed for album covers, it had immortal neighborhood status. But Gem Spa had a fatal structural flaw. Over the decades, they had lost their lottery terminal license, and they didn't take EBT. They were surviving purely on magazine sales, snacks, nostalgia, and foot traffic. Then, the calendar hit January 2020. The property lease expired. The landlord looked at this legendary neighborhood corner and decided that $6,500 a month in rent wasn't enough anymore. They demanded $10,000 a month, a 54% rent hike overnight. How many extra $5 egg creams do you have to sell just to cover an extra $3,500 a month in rent? The math was impossible. The owner tried to negotiate, burned through tens of thousands of dollars in personal savings to keep the lights on, and fought for 5 months. But without the high-margin liquidity engine of an ATM and a lottery terminal to cushion the blow, the business was defenseless. By May of 2020, the iconic neon sign was shut off forever, and the store closed its doors. When your only mode is nostalgia, the landlord always wins the arithmetic. And if the landlord doesn't get you, force number 2 will, the labor illusion. Let's look at a tale of 2 bodegas to see how the math really plays out. On one side of the street, you have Scenario A, your standard family-run independent corner store in Queens. They pull in $650,000 a year in revenue. After paying for the inventory, the electricity, which is brutal because refrigeration units run non-stop, and the rent, the store is left with roughly $106,000 in net cash flow. You hear $106,000 and think, hey, that's a great living. Now let's look at the clock. To keep that bodega open 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, takes over 6,500 hours of human labor every year. If you hired normal, non-family employees at the legal New York City minimum wage of $16 an hour, plus payroll taxes and workers' compensation insurance, your total labor costs would be over $115,000. Do you see the problem? $106,000 in cash flow minus $115,000 in labor costs equals a net loss of $9,000 a year. A standard independent bodega is legally, mathematically unprofitable if it has to pay real wages. The only reason that store in Queens survives is because the owner, his brother, and his nephew work 80 hours a week each, never take a sick day, never take a vacation, and divide that net cash flow among themselves instead of drawing a legal hourly paycheck. They aren't running a business. They have simply bought themselves an 80-hour-a-week job that pays roughly $16 an hour without health benefits. Now, look across the street at Scenario B, the corporate mega operator. Think of a massive modern 7-Eleven or a Wawa franchise. That single corporate store generates over $2 million a year in revenue. Why? Because scale changes the laws of physics. While our independent bodega owner in Queens is driving his own white Ford Transit van to Costco at 5 in the morning to buy 36 packs of Coca-Cola just to save 10 cents a can on distribution markups, the corporate chain is buying Coke directly from the factory at a 30% discount. The corporate store uses automated algorithmic ordering so food never spoils. They have dedicated high-speed lottery kiosks so lines never back up. They can afford to pay $16 an hour to a full staff of shift managers and cashiers. And because their wholesale supply costs are so low, that single corporate location still drops over $400,000 in pure net profit to the bottom line every single year. The family-run bodega is a dinosaur fighting for scraps in a freezing world, and the corporate convenience chain is the meteor coming from the sky. So the next time you walk into a neighborhood bodega at midnight, I want you to look around with new eyes. Don't look at the bags of Doritos or the stacks of paper towels. Those aren't products. They are just physical banner ads designed to lure you inside. Look at the cat sleeping on the beer cases and recognize a brilliant $300 municipal tax dodge. Look at the dusty $5 credit card minimum sign and respect a small business owner fighting a desperate trench war against global banking fees. And most of all, look at that beige ATM in the corner and that flashing lottery terminal on the counter. Because the bodega was never a grocery store, it is a community bank and a state-sponsored casino that happens to hand you a hot bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich on your way out the door. And speaking of businesses that are completely lying to you about what they actually sell, what if I told you that movie theaters make zero profit on the tickets you buy and are basically just high-margin liquid butter dispensaries? But trust me, that one only gets wilder. Subscribe to get notified when that video drops. Drop a comment if you liked the video,